Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webcast. My name is Mike Otranto, and I'm a strategic account specialist at Wicresoft. I'm also joined on today's webcast with Jim Patterson, who leads in a business development role, and Matt Wiley, our product expert. Today, we'll focus on delivering a unified PPM and Agile management solution with Project Online. After the webinar, you will receive an email with a copy of the recording and the slide deck so you can review. The line will not be open for questions, but you can type in your questions via the chat feature. So if you want to know more about Wicresoft and who we are today, we are a Microsoft joint venture that was founded in 2002. We provide consulting, business process outsourcing, managed services, and global support for staffing. We are a triple gold certified Microsoft partner. Less than 1% of partners ever have that designation. We're certified in project portfolio management, collaboration and content, and cloud productivity. From a project and portfolio management standpoint, we have a deep expertise in Project Online and Project Server. So we have a lot of experience helping organizations maximize their efficiency and technological advantage. We have a footprint all over North America and internationally. I will now hand off the webcast to Jim Patterson. Jim?
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate the introduction, and welcome everybody to our webcast today. Let's dive into our topic today, delivering a unified PPM and Agile management solution with Project Online. Just a little bit on the approach we're going to take. We're going to talk a little bit about the current trends in the marketplace that are driving the need for this topic to be discussed, and then we'll go into unified PPM and Agile concepts, and then we'll follow that up with demonstration of these concepts in action. And Matt Willie will be providing us with that demonstration. Then we'll follow with some summary and wrap up and some action items you can take if you'd like to pursue this concept further. So let's talk about current trends in the marketplace. You know, we've talked about this before, but it doesn't matter how brick and mortar or low tech we think some of our companies may be. We're all becoming technology companies on some level, whether to deliver our products and services to the marketplace or just to remain competitive and reach our customers in a better way. So things like old department stores have been replaced by the Amazons of the world, the old blockbuster videos by the Netflix and other streaming services. Transportation has even become app-driven with things like Uber and Lyft. Even ordering our soft drinks and things at fast food stores have become more software experiences for us with the types of machines that we deal with and have our interactions with. And all this does is change the nature by the way we do business internally, and it affects all the different roles in our organization, from the executives that have to strategize and figure new ways and new business models to bring products and services to the marketplace, to the PMOs and the software development folks that deliver projects that are more technology driven over time and have to change our methods to meet increasing changes of pace by which technology needs to be delivered. And then we have to support these things as we put them out and understand how to support our customers if they have issues and other things like that in their experience with us. So as we move forward with this, it's really breeding the need to do more than just traditional project management that we've done in the past. One size does not fit all. And what it's doing is it's bringing about the rise, or has brought about the rise, of Agile project management, doing things in a more iterative fashion, more responsive to change, those types of things. And this adoption is really on the rise. One of the thought leaders in Agile management, VersionOne, does a State of Agile survey every year, and it gets feedback from the marketplace. And in 2016, the number had risen to 94% of organizations practice some Agile somewhere in their organization. Not saying they do it broadly across the board, but it's being done somewhere in their organization, up from 80% in just 2011 up to 94% as of last year. That's quite a rise and quite a pervasive use of Agile in the marketplace. Now, that being said, we have traditional project management, more waterfall types of approaches that have been used in the past, and this has originally been done to supplement those things and to complement, and oftentimes supplant traditional ways of doing project management within organizations. Now, as far as making a transition into Agile, what are some of the concerns that prevent Agile adoption? Well, some of them, it's the unknown. It's the leadership's fear of the unknown and saying that we don't understand the Agile approach, and the perception that maybe there's a lack of upfront planning in Agile, or they are afraid of losing visibility or management control of what's going on if people are doing some Agile stuff off to the side out of the mainstream. And the idea here is that this separation and this perception of it being something different is a barrier that doesn't need to actually be something that's in play in organizations today. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. But really, when we look at PMI in capturing the value of project management through organization agility, agility doesn't mean necessarily that we are agile throughout the entire organization or we use agile approaches for everything. A quote out of that publication says that smart organizations realize that using agile techniques such as Scrum or DevOps is not the only or even the best indicator of an organization's speed or flexibility. What they're saying is that most agile organizations are more likely to use several different project management approaches, or using approaches that are targeted to the task at hand or the initiative at hand, rather than trying to force fit a methodology to all things. So when we do these things in organizations and we have different types of work with different approaches, we often end up with companies adopting different tool sets and different silos of information and different processes depending on the nature and the type of work being done. Three of the more common silos that we see out there are things like, for example, in the middle silo, traditional project management, which will make analogous with like waterfall type project management that are done by things traditionally like in Microsoft Project. And then on the right, you've got application management and application development, where some of the agile stuff really started taking hold initially. And they're using tools there, for example, that, some start with just Post-it notes on whiteboards, but then moving into more electronic tools with things like Visual Studio and Jira and VersionOne. Oftentimes they were using a whole separate system and separate set of data and information to manage those types of projects, separate and distinct from the traditional project management processes. And then you got service management and things like IT, where they're using IT service management tools like ServiceNow, Microsoft Dynamics, and maybe Service Cloud and Salesforce. And the idea there is that you have unstructured work that sometimes impacts the resource availability or just the resource management aspects of things as we go on through. So as we have organizations that do these things, and on top of that, maybe a myriad of spreadsheets that pop up through the organization to manage different types of work, we as resources and people that execute on these things oftentimes find ourselves monitoring 3, 4, 5, 6 different systems and spreadsheets in order to see what's on our plate, and then also have to update those things differently to provide feedback to the organization on actually what we've accomplished and how things are going, let alone understanding what the priorities are and what's more important than the next. So these technology-driven challenges really breed this kind of maze of information and approaches that we're walking through. And oftentimes it manifests itself in some of these things. I'm not going to go through these things individually, but just lack of a cross-functional stream effectiveness across an organization, lack of visibility because of silos, manual processes that we have to do because we are doing duplicate entry and going across the organization. It could manifest itself in just poor customer service, which is, that's our reason for being in business, and we don't want to impact that at all. So the idea here is that there's challenges that we have to endure if we have this disconnection. And then ultimately, it provides barriers, not just barriers between us and our customers, but also barriers between us and our different silos and our different departments in our organizations and these cross-functional type of approaches. And ultimately, our customers can see these things in things like low response times, no consistent processes, communication barriers. Oftentimes, it can lead to confused and unhappy employees that basically can promote higher turnover or less job satisfaction where we're at, let alone just ineffective or inefficient ways of working. And the idea is that we want to avoid this at all costs, especially if there's answers at hand. So let's talk about how we unify this a little bit. And let's start by talking about the concept of traditional project and portfolio management and Agile being unified. We didn't coin this term bimodal, but the Gartner Group in 2015 introduced the term bimodal IT. And they define it as the practice of managing two separate yet coherent modes of IT delivery, one focused on stability and the other focused on agility. And I think this promotes the case of two modes where, depending on the nature of what you're doing, each of these modes has a place within an organization. Mode one being traditional PPM, using the analogy of a marathon runner with longer cycle times and approaches such as waterfall. But this mode one is more of a linear approach to change, emphasizing predictability, accuracy, and reliability and stability, more of a steady as she goes, follow the process type of approach. Mode two, with the analogy more of a sprinter, things with shorter cycle times, delivering in quicker chunks, using approaches like Agile, Scrum, Lean, Kanban, etc. It's more of a non-linear approach, more iterative, involving learning via iteration and emphasizing agility and speed, and above all, managing uncertainty. The goal there is to deliver quicker and be more responsive to change on a more recurring basis. The idea is there's a place for both of these things that make sense within most organizations. But when you have disconnected systems and teams, and you have traditional PPM, which is often the domain of the PMO within an organization, and you have Agile, which is really a domain of the teams that are actually doing development and delivery, oftentimes Agile becomes a little bit of a black hole to the PMO. They may not have the requisite visibility because they're using different systems and tools. They have difficulty providing a holistic portfolio update to leadership because they have to mash up data from a variety of different sources, usually manually or semi-manually. And then the challenges of things, how do you manage CapEx versus OpEx from a financials perspective? And on the Agile teams, they look at the PPM and approaches and saying, well, we want Agile for a reason. We're trying to become quicker in delivery. We're trying to get rid of overhead that's unnecessary, stay more heads down on delivery. And sometimes they view PPM as providing unnecessary overhead and adding no value to their Agile approaches. But they still have a responsibility to the organization. And sometimes it manifests itself because the organization does have demands that sometimes they have to duplicate things like timesheet and status entry and separate tools and systems and spreadsheets, separate and distinct from their Agile tools, which makes them less than effective and makes not the most productive use of their time either. So the key is we really got to try to find the right balance. There is a really driving need to have both. In the PPM solution, that governance-driven approach to provide the visibility, insight, alignment, and control that leadership wants in the organization and they need so they can track the veracity and the approach of their investments and how they're doing. But we still have to be agile in an organization so we can innovate, have quicker time to market, be responsive, and really meet the needs of our customers and stay in the forefront in the market leadership in our own industries. So the idea is, how do we find the right balance? Now, in a unified PPM and Agile approach, instead of having separate systems, we would essentially have, singular portfolios of investments. And regardless of the approach we're taking, whether they be traditional waterfall or more agile type of approaches, we should be able to manage them together and a little more harmoniously in this new hybrid project management world. And in this case, as we talk about Project Online as the PPM solution from Microsoft, if we look at this blue bar across this diagram reflecting the end-to-end capabilities of Project Online from a PPM perspective, through intake and demand, portfolio management, all the execution and reporting throughout, the idea there is that when you go to execute and build out your planning, and that all feeds from that detail level up to a higher level portfolio. Traditional waterfall project management has been done very nicely by the market leader in that space, which is Microsoft Project, which is the native capability within Project Online to do project planning. Now, traditionally, it has had really only waterfall planning capabilities really in it. Just recently released and announced in the latest updates to Microsoft Project Professional for Project Online is some capabilities to do some light agile type of capabilities right within Microsoft Project. But oftentimes, the agile purists and organizations have already adopted agile tools. So if you look down the middle portion of this diagram, where the portfolio may be where the investment of the project is being tracked at a high level, the execution and the details are being done in agile tools like Visual Studio and Jira and VersionOne or Rally. And then we talked about some maybe lighter weight planning tools on the right, things like Office 365 Planner and Wunderlist things. The execution might be doing on those things today, but we're going to focus on the difference between the waterfall on the left and the Agile on the center, and then talk about how we can bring those things together a little bit more effectively. But it's Wicresoft's Project Connect platform that gives us the ability that's here today with productized connection to allow these things to happen regardless of what execution tools our teams choose to use. So I talked about these new Microsoft Agile features in Microsoft Project. It gives us the ability to do some waterfall and some Agile projects right within Microsoft Project itself. So essentially, if you have the latest update and you go and you look at Microsoft Project Online as the PPM solution, where you're doing all your portfolio level and program level, your investment approval, all financial and capacity planning and things up here at the top, that's still your central register or source of the truth from a portfolio management perspective. But the detailed execution and planning that goes on by the teams who actually deliver on those projects, they may be using Microsoft Project or Project Web Access on the left-hand side for traditional waterfall scheduling. But now there's the ability, if you go in and create new projects, there's templates for both Scrum projects and for more Kanban type Agile projects within project itself that allow us to go down that route as well, in addition to the traditional waterfall that we've always done. And if we look at this in the new Microsoft feature, even though the task basis behind these are the same, a way to present and organize and plan these provide new views and capabilities within project itself to do that, where we can do backlog planning, where we can plan out different sprints or iterations, as we see on the left, lower left-hand picture there. And then task boards, where we can actually plan out our tasks and stories through different stages and phases through our process. And this can be done in more of an iterative, Scrum type of approach, or more of a process flow type of Kanban approach through those boards as we go on through here. And we'll show a little bit about that today. Now, this being said, it is a first iteration and it does some light capabilities within this area. But for folks that don't have an Agile tool in place and want to be able to do this in a common tool set, they provide some very nice features for you to explore. Now, for folks that are using other tools for Agile today, in this case like Visual Studio, whether it's TFS, Team Foundation Server, or VSTS, which is in the cloud, Visual Studio Team Services, which is the cloud version of TFS, the idea that same scenario holds true here. All the portfolio management capabilities handled by Project Online represented here at the top, the waterfall scheduling being done over in Project or Project Web Access, but then really the tools that are built into the software development lifecycle tools within Visual Studio allows you to build your backlog hierarchies and do your Agile planning and execution in Visual Studio, really where your code is oftentimes being managed itself. And the idea here is through Wicresoft's Project Connect, you can have seamless integration back to Project Online's portfolio, just as if the execution was being done in Microsoft Project itself, meaning the teams can use a tool like Visual Studio that may be more conducive to the way they do work, but yet they can be still meeting the needs of the organization by having the relevant information seamlessly flow back to the portfolio for visibility, reporting, and control. And that same use case is also available with Microsoft's Project Connect with Jira as well. Jira is another popular tool that's out there that people are doing a lot of Agile work in there, but it doesn't provide a lot in the way of portfolio management capabilities. And the idea is that can be your execution tool, still uniquely tied to portfolio items in Project Online without the Agile teams having to do anything unnecessarily, let's just say unnatural, from the way they would ordinarily do their work within Jira or in Visual Studio for that matter. The idea here is we could be using different tools which in and of themselves, left to their own devices, could become silos of information that might have to be manually mashed up in some way in order to get comprehensive views. But by having that connection back to the portfolio management system in Project Online, we now have the opportunity to bring resource and planning information back to maybe do more holistic resource capacity planning across all work, regardless of what the planning tools are that are being used. Same thing with time reporting. Oftentimes people are using Agile tools and then they're being asked to go to yet another tool in order to report time. Now, the portfolio management capabilities of Project Online provides an onboard native timesheet capabilities to allow people to report time and actuals against their projects or the work items within those projects. That Wicresoft Project Connect integration allows people to enter that information right in their Agile tool. In this case, it's showing VSTS and Visual Studio. You'll be able to put that time in and have it auto-populate that timesheet, so they're not updating status in the Agile tool and then having to go out to a PPM tool separately and enter that time, in essence, a second time as they go on through. And it's not uncommon for us to see organizations where people are actually having to update time on the same item in 2 or 3 different places. Not anymore with that Project Connect. And then with Project Intelligence, with having, we start building more of these even more robust data sets from the PPM solution, from our different Agile tools, et cetera. The idea is we can provide some really native, robust reporting that allows us to look at this from a variety of different ways, whether they be KPIs from a traditional PPM perspective, or maybe even look at traditional PPM and project type of metrics alongside Agile metrics, right within Power BI through a automated feed of data that goes right from Project Online to Power BI through reporting. And we'll show you some of that here today in the demonstration. And with that, I will turn it over to Matthew Willey, who will walk us through live some of the things we've been talking about in concept.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Jim. All right, so I'm logged in here into Project Online, and this is my portfolio view. So I'm looking at all the different projects we have going on right now. Some of the different health indicators or KPIs for those projects. How are we doing from an overall health perspective, schedule health, work health, resources, costs, etc. And I can also see a high-level Gantt or roadmap type of a view of these different projects or timeline of how they all lay out here. And so, whether these are Agile projects, waterfall projects, hybrid projects, or, even being managed in other systems, I can still come in and get this one view of everything, but let's dive into how that all works. So portfolio or Project Online, has a full portfolio analysis and intake process that we can utilize to approve our projects. So things can start out as ideas, and if those ideas look good, we can kind of move them to the next phase in the workflow and build out a little bit more information, put in high-level resource plans, more detailed budget estimates, and such. And from there, we can utilize the portfolio analysis module if we choose to do so to get these projects to an approved state. And so no matter what process you're using, how rigorous that is, or if that's being done somewhere else, whatever it might be, at some point we have approved projects and we need to start doing some more detailed planning and planning them out. Some of these projects might lend themselves better to waterfall methodology. Some of them might be better suited for Agile methodology, or maybe even a mix, a hybrid of the two. And so to do that, traditionally, when you'd come into Project Online, you'd come in and you'd say, okay, I want to go and build out my project schedule, and I could open it in the browser or in Microsoft Project for editing. And then that would pop open Microsoft Project if you chose this. And traditionally, it would go into the standard kind of waterfall task view. But now, as Jim mentioned, there is a new feature that just came out that allows me to do some lightweight Agile planning right from within Project Desktop. And then when I save and publish, it'll then push that information back into Project Online. So we still have one repository for all of this information. So real quick, the way that looks and works is you can come into a view like this, and I can create all of my different user stories, tasks, bugs, epics, whatever they might be, and I can build out my backlog basically of all the things that I want to do. And then I can simply just drag and drop these into different sprints to do my sprint planning. There's also a Kanban mode for this. So if you don't do sprint planning, you're not using Scrum or something that does sprints. If you're using Kanban, where you just have a Kanban board of everything and try to limit work in process and such, there's an option for that as well. But I can come in, plan things into sprints like sprint 1, sprint 2. And then I can go into my current sprint board. So this is just looking at sprint 1 now, which is my current sprint. And this is the backlog of items that I planned into the sprint. And as things become next up, I can drag them over here. And as they go to in progress, I can drag them across and done, and so on and so forth. And you can even create extra swim lanes in here if there are other steps in the process that you want to be able to update the status into as well. So from there, I would, just like I would if I was building my waterfall schedule, I could save this. It would save it back to Project Online. And if I do a file publish, it will publish this back to Project Online. as well. So it does give you some lightweight, easy to use capabilities right within Project Desktop natively that I can go and manage my Agile projects that way. However, if you're already using another tool, like say Visual Studio Team Services or Jira or others, and you have a group of people using that and they like it and it's working for them, as well as possibly other DevOps features that might be in there, like source code control, test management, load testing, so on and so forth. I might want to continue to use that, but be able to sync back the relevant information so that we can have one place to go to see status for our projects, time, resources, resource load, etc. So how do I do that? So instead of coming in and opening this up in Microsoft Project, I would come here and I'd select my project, like my Fabricam project here, and maybe I want to manage this over in Visual Studio Team Services or TFS. I just click my button here, and that will link me into that project over in VSTS. If it doesn't exist in VSTS yet, then it will create it at that point and then link them together. But if it already exists like it did here, then it's just linking me over here, giving me a quick, easy way to get to it. And if people just work in VSTS all day, they can just log right into VSTS and get to the project the same way they always do. Nothing has to change for them. It just gives you a quick, easy way to create as well as get over here. From there, I can then go in and start to build out my plan or my backlog, if you want to call it that. So I'm going to say build out all of my different epics, and I could break those down into different features, break those features down into different user stories, into different tasks and bugs. And you're not locked into this hierarchy or structure by any means. This is just a common structure. If you're using a different structure over here, that's fine. The integration doesn't care one way or another what structure you're using. But from there, then I can start to plan these items out and say, okay, this user story, I can drag and drop it into a sprint or iteration. And when I do that, so I'm now planning and saying, okay, I'm going to do these things within that particular period of time. Then I can flip into my Kanban board and I can start to update status by dragging and dropping these items from one status to the next. I can go into these items and I can say I spent 2 hours on this today or 10 hours or whatever it might be, and you can also put in estimates and remaining estimates, and that will all carry across as well, and we'll see what that looks like in just a second. If you're using points, that's fine as well. We can send over the points information to it. It doesn't necessarily have to be hours, just depends on what you guys are doing. And so as I'm creating these items, work items, user stories, task bugs, etc., over here in VSTS, and assigning people and updating status and tracking the time and the estimates, we can send all that information back into Project Online, or at least the relevant information from it that we want for our different purposes. I can do that either automatically, so I can have it run every hour, every night, however often I want to be able to sync that information back, and no one has to do anything different than just make sure they're updating the information there in VSTS. Or if you want to have a little bit more control around when that happens, you can also do it on demand. So I can come in and hit publish to project, just like I did in Microsoft Project Desktop. I could hit publish in there, and that pushes the information, syncs it back into Project Online. I can do the same right here from VSTS just by hitting this button. And so when you do that, it pushes that information back into Project Online. So I now get my status, my resource load, and the time if we want to use all three of those. And so let's take a look at what that looks like when it comes back in. So if I go into my Fabricam project here, we can go to some different views and look at this in different ways. So for example, if I wanted to group this just by sprint and have a very simple view here, I can see here are the different things we planned into sprint or iteration 1, and here are the things that we planned into sprint or iteration 2. And you can see when we're planning to do those things and the estimate of hours if we were doing that and who's assigned, and so on and so forth. What epic this rolls into, feature story, all kinds of things that we can bring in. If I wanted to see a view that was more similar to what we saw over in VSTS in our backlog view, I can do that as well. It's just a matter of coming in and changing the groupings or having some preset views that we want to see these things in specific ways. So I can come in and I can set my groupings to something like I want to group by epic, then feature, then user story, so on and so forth, something like that. Then I can set up my grouping to do it that way. So I'll come in here and I'll go, I want to group by epic, and then feature, and then by story, and say okay. And this is going to look then very similar to how it looks over in VSTS. So I can see here are my different epics broken down into different features and the stories with the detailed tasks and bugs and such below it. So it's really rolling all that information back in, and in a way where I can still see it in more of an agile way if I want to do so. You know, you have a lot of flexibility on there and how you actually want to look at it as it comes back in. So this gives me the visibility into the status and the timeline. You know, a lot of times we hear the PMO says, hey, the Agile group is almost like a black hole for us, meaning we don't ever know what's happening until something comes out of the black hole. There's a lot of great value going on over there, and good things are happening, but we don't have enough visibility into when things are going to happen in the near future, into the roadmap, you know, so on and so forth. And so this right here alone, without making anyone do anything different, can help with that and provide visibility into the status and the timeline and such. The other piece of this is from a resource management perspective. Because we're bringing all this work together in one place, we can now go and look across my different resources, like say my business analyst here, and I could go into one of my capacity planning views, and I can see who's working on what, on which projects and which work, and who's over allocated or not. So if they show up in red, they're over allocated within that period of time. If they show up in green, that means we're utilizing them properly, so we're not over allocating or under allocating them, we're getting good value out of them. If they're blue, that means that they still have availability. And we need to get them some more work. And so even if I'm a person who might work on some Agile work over in VSTS and some waterfall work here in Project Online, maybe other operational work, like I work on the help desk, and you can see there's help desk operational types of work in here. We can really roll that all together so you have one full view of who's really working on what and who's over allocated or not, and who has availability to take on new work. And being able to do that without having to try to do manual things and, you know, keep other separate spreadsheets up to date or do exports, imports, and, you know, mush things together, right there can be a big win for a lot of people that have a pain point around resource management. So the last piece of this is I can also get all of my time in one place. So at the end of the week, instead of having to come into the Project Online timesheet and then fill out all of my time for all the work that I already put in time for over in Visual Studio Team Services, that time would already be here because the integration took care of that for me. If there are any other waterfall projects I worked on, I could put in time for those. If I had any admin time, like sick time, vacation, or whatever it might be, I could put that all in, save and submit my timesheet. If I'm purely just working on Agile work over in VSTS, we even have an option to have it auto-submit the person's timesheet here in Project Online, so they never have to come here and even log in. Their time's just going to automatically flow, their timesheet will submit, and they'll be done. So there's some different ways we can set that up and have that work to keep it really easy for people. From there, we could even integrate this into, say, your financial system like SAP or PeopleSoft or whatever it might be, so that you still, you know, finance and accounting gets all the information they need, while the project managers, scrum masters, etc., who are managing all these different projects get the visibility that they need as well into where that time is actually going. So from there, as all that information's rolling together, we can see it here within the system and interact with it and such. But we can also pull that into reports that we can deliver to managers, to other stakeholders, to executives, whoever it might be that needs to get access to this information. A really great way to do that is through Power BI. So this particular dashboard here is what we call our Agile PPM portfolio dashboard. Let's say I'm an IT manager, for example, who manages a portfolio of multiple portfolios of projects. Some of them are Agile and some are waterfall and some may even be hybrid. Then we can bring all of that data in here as well. And I should have mentioned, we also have an integration to Jira. So the exact same case I just used for VSTS, you could do the same thing with Jira and pull in the time, the status, the resource management, you know, so on and so forth. Pull it all together in a dashboard like this, and what we're looking at here is instead of me having to go to Jira or VSTS to get the reports, you know, from the Agile projects and go to Project Online to get the reports from the, you know, waterfall projects, and not having a consistent view across everything to see everything together and resource load and time across it, I can come to one dashboard like this and see everything all from within one place. And so what I'm looking at here is on the left side, I have more traditional waterfall types of look and feel visuals, things like portfolio cost gauges and risk and RI. But the cool part is this isn't just my waterfall projects I'm looking at. This is actually the total portfolio cost of all of my projects, waterfall, agile, etc. As I scroll down here, I can see bubble charts of risk versus ROI. Each dot or bubble here is actually a project, and it could be an agile or a waterfall project. It's all automatically here, and then it flows in real time as that information changes. So I can always get visibility of what's going on into project status, so on and so forth. On the right side, though, I can also show more traditional agile types of metrics across these projects, things like sprint burnups or burn downs. Bug trends over time. Are they going up? Are we going down? Hopefully they're going down. Cumulative flow diagrams of user stories, velocity charts, whatever it might be, we can show those right in line. So I have one place to go to get all the information that I want. And from here, I can even click into one of these. Like, for example, I'm interested in resource availability across all this work. If I click into that, it will then drill into that particular report. So I can now get more details around who's working on what, who's available, and who's not. And from there, you can even continue to drill in. So this is showing me resource load by role. But if I come here and click on, say, my support role, it will drill in and then show me all of my individual support people and how available they are or not across all of this work that's going on, possibly in multiple different systems, right? And so it's really powerful then to be able to deliver these to people. And on top of that, we can get these things to people in many different ways, including mobile. So I could see this on my mobile phone or my tablet and get access to it that way when I'm on the go, not necessarily when I'm just in front of my computer. You can subscribe to these and get emails of them on a regular basis, daily, weekly, however often you want. And if I'm looking to do some ad hoc reporting, even if I'm not the most technical user in the world, I can actually do that right from here as well. So there's a little feature in here called natural language query. And what it allows you to do is basically ask a question about your data, and it will try to answer that with a report. So for example, I'll show you. Let's say I want to do a resource management one, since we're talking about that. I can come in and go, I want to show average, I didn't spell that right, average, and notice it's trying to help me out here, average, let's do work variance, something like that. And you can see it's helping me out and trying to work me through this, so I can actually pick things there, even if I don't quite know the names and such. Show average work variance by, let's do by project name, something like that. And so based off of what you type in, it'll actually go out and it's going to search and try to find if any reports already exist that you just didn't know about. Or in this case, this report actually didn't exist and it created it based off of what I just typed in. So it actually created the report for me without me having to put in X's and Y's and set up queries and all these different types of things. I already have access to the data. I just want to see it in a different way and answer a question. From there, you can even change it and go, what, I want this to be a column chart. Now it's a column chart, and it's giving me lots of other options here. Actually, I want it to be a pie chart. Now it's a pie chart. You can pop open the little editor here if you want to get fancy and come in and change things like
Hi, it sounds like we may have lost Matthew on the audio portion of this. So let me pick this up from here, if I might. And let me start sharing my screen. Hopefully you guys can hear me.
I can hear you, Jim.
All right, terrific. So let's, Matthew was getting towards the end of the reporting piece that he was going to cover anyway, so we didn't really miss much in the way of content. He was just really wrapping up with the natural language querying and how the innovative ways that you can tailor some reports without being actually a report developer or create reports without having report development skills. So from a wrap-up perspective, this Wicresoft Project Connect really provides us a lot of capability to integrate a variety of other tools. We showed you some innate capabilities that have been added to Microsoft Project to do Agile. We've also shown you integration and at a high level with Visual Studio and Jira, for example. But these use cases also go to people that want to integrate with their financial systems or their CRM systems or the IT service management systems, which is a topic for a whole nother day. And we actually have a recorded webinar on that with ServiceNow, for example, out on our website. The idea is once you get into this integrated world where the PPM solution becomes your center of the universe project online, you can start incorporating data either in a one-way or bi-directional fashion from a variety of different other line of business systems and tools in your organization. So please be aware of that, there's a lot of value to be had there. And then just the value of integration overall, it just brings improved portfolio alignment to organizational goals and objectives, meaning it really better merges the tactical tools with the strategic portfolio management tools that we're using and provide really robust PPM software that's integrated with all work and resources in all these different tools and bringing them into a single view on an automated basis. And it just really reliably brings together disparate business systems. Things that are disconnected today quickly become connected with the integration via Project Connect. And then one of the byproducts could be a holistic view of resource availability and efficiency of our use and our allocation of those across an organization, really giving us more real-time information for better forecasting and more realistic expectations that we can communicate to our customers and the rest of the organization. Just overall improved governance for planning, executing, and reporting across all types of work. And then just the value of more of a hybrid Agile and traditional PPM project management is that we can keep workers, users working in their primary and preferred tools and solutions based upon the work that they're doing and the types of work they're doing. We no longer have to try to force fit them into something that maybe isn't designed specifically for the type of work that they're doing. It also allows users to work in tools that are appropriate for their role and maturity. So for example, they don't have to use maybe all the robust capabilities of the full copy of Microsoft Project if they have lighter weight needs or other things that they'd like to do, and there's other execution tools that might meet those needs, yet have them still all tied to a common holistic portfolio. It also improves user adoption success by minimizing unnecessary complexity. If we tailor the tools to the right jobs and not ask more of the users than they really need to do, and eliminating that unnecessary complexity, our adoption success and people's use of the system consistently can become greatly improved. So ultimately drive better user participation and compliance, meaning we have more complete and more reliable and timely data. Ultimately, just better collaboration across all areas of the business through this hybrid type of world, having it working together rather than disconnected silos. So just about us, once again, Mike introduced earlier on in our webinar, we are a firm that provides both consulting in these areas, business process outsourcing and managed services for organizations that wants help and having our staff to help with these types of things, as well as global support and staffing to help supplement folks in your organization if need be, to get you through either temporary or more permanent needs in these areas. So we'd love to talk to you about how we might help you do some of these things. As far as the next steps, if you're intrigued by what you saw today, we can help you by offering free at no charge an assessment of what it would take to get you into some of the capabilities we talked about based on where you're starting from today, and maybe a roadmap of what it would take to do those types of things. So there's no cost on your part, just a little time with us in order to figure out what those parameters might be. We can also help you with a free trial or a chaperone trial of Project Online to see if we can actually have you get hands-on with these types of capabilities, meaning we can set you up with a trial, understand your success criteria, and chaperone you through that entire process if you like. And because we gave you a generalized overview demonstration today, if you need something more personalized, one-on-one for your particular organization or others in your organization, please reach out. We're happy to arrange that for you and tailor something more unique to you. If you want to reach out to us, North American Sales, that's NA Sales at Wicresoft.com is our general line. Mike Otranto handles our inside sales as well as interaction from our webinars. So please feel free to reach out to Mike. And you can also reach out to myself, Jim Patterson, or Matt Willey, who did the demo, if you have specific needs there. You'll get a copy of these slides, so you'll have this information if you do want to reach out to us. And I would say our websites, if you want more information, from us.wicresoft.com, more Project Online specific information that we provide in content at project-online.com, and more specific information on Project Connect is available at uswicresoft.com/Project Connect. We do have in our website an area for webinars, and we have both upcoming webinars scheduled that you can register for, as well as a whole library of on-demand recorded webinars that we've already done. Much like we are going to do today, we're going to send a link to the recording and a copy of the slides to you after the fact. So if you didn't get to stay the whole time, or if you're people that aren't here, everybody's going to get a copy of what was done here today. We'd like to thank you for investing your valuable time with us today. Hopefully you found some value in the information, and we'd really welcome the opportunity to talk with you further about how these concepts and these tools might be able to help you in your specific organizations. Have a great day, and thanks again for attending.